Welcome back to Secretly Frequencies, the podcast that meets labels and artists from the Secretly family and tells the untold stories behind their musical histories. This is the second part of our 2-episode series with Superchunk. If you've not heard the first part yet, pun fully intended, then just go ahead and hit pause now and dial up that episode where you can hear us chat through songs from the first half of their career. And then you can come back over here to listen to Eric Osmon and me chat with Jim and Matt from the band some more. Okay, you ready? Let's dive in. Okay, let's move on to the next song.
And bigger waves across your salty sea. Brace yourself, or what the hell? Which one will it be? Shuffled off and sidetracked along the way, breeding layers of pay dirt and banner wavers. The clutter that is every day, but tiny bumps and bigger waves across your once glassy sea. And what's it worth for a stupid song? Oh, this is what haunts me.
Tiny Bombs. Wow.
That's right. One of the longest songs in your discography as well. And I think it makes sense to pick this song in particular from this record because it's one of the departures from like the rock songs, but also sonically, this record is a big departure because you're going in with Jim O'Rourke, you're adding horns, you're adding strings, you're really going for quite a different thing at this point. And that's a really exciting moment. I remember getting this record. Well, actually, I remember hearing the first track, Hello Hawk, and thinking, this is going to be so special. That song felt like an incredible moment for Superchunk, actually. I'm really interested to know a little bit more about how much of a proactive decision there had been that we are going to really switch it up for this record.
I think it was very deliberate. We've been working with Touch and Go for a while at this point, and so we were kind of immersed in their culture of the stuff they were putting out, and that included Drag City and other labels. And Jim O'Rourke made some amazing solo records. He was also in Gasser del Sol that I was a big fan of. I mean, Jim and I have both been Dave Grubbs fans since Squirrelbait days, you know. And I remember talking to Ken Vandermark about working on a Jim O'Rourke record, a solo that he plays on a song. I can't remember what song it is, but sounded like he'd be really fun to work with. we had kind of flirted with like fake string arrangements with like keyboards and stuff on other mellotrons and things on other records. And so to have someone that could actually write string and horn arrangements, we thought would be awesome. And to work in Chicago, where we knew Albini and other musicians that could come play on our record, including Jeb Bishop, who, he was from North Carolina. He was in a band called Egg, punk bands that I listened to growing up. Anyway, it just seemed like a cool situation to go make this record there. I think it was when we were making demos for the record, it was very much in our minds that there's going to be space for these arrangements and stuff. But I will say that, like, I'm glad that you were excited about this record and thought when you heard the first single, like, that this was going to be great, because this was maybe the first but not the last album that we've done where there's a lot of people that were like, yeah, this isn't really what I'm looking for from this band. I know that John was not really happy with the final product in terms of the drum sounds. And I know what he's talking about when I hear it, because they're not upfront and like, as banging as they are
the
on
snare
some other
doesn't
records
crack or whatever, but it works perfectly to my ears for the type of record that you're trying to make here.
Yeah, I think Jim had a vision. That's what we wanted. I think it's a really cool record, and I really like how it turned out.
I feel like it's worth noting that we've departed from the new Superchunk record every year, and now from Indoor Living on, it's kind of on a 2-year timeline. Does that feel like because the label's getting busier? I know Merge has some huge records during that period of time with Neutral Milk Hotel and maybe some early Lamb Chopper Magnetic Field stuff. Does it feel like that's just the natural progression of doing the band for like 10 years, close to 10 years at this time period? What does that feel like?
We were still touring a lot, but yeah, I think that maybe when we got back from tour, we were less like immediately writing 10 songs. I don't know, Jim, what do you think?
It sounds right to me. It's maybe like self-preservation was just like, maybe there was like there was a less of an urgency to like keep the machine at the pace that it was at. Also, yeah, I don't really have a memory of things being different. I think maybe they just were, just because we were tired, not tired, but like, but in a good way, just like satisfied, and it wasn't, we weren't trying to prove something or like trying to like keep it going. It was like just working at a pace that felt a little more like sustainable. I think, but I don't know.
Okay. We're going to hear another one.
Florida's on fire.
Yeah. You're real quick on that one, Mac.
You guys were both like a little bit hedging at the beginning of this recording session. I was saying, we're not quite sure. I don't think there's been any that I've played more than 5-7 seconds of without both of you just, we know it.
I'm glad that Jim came up with Tiny Bombs because like I was like I even know like what position on the album this song is, but like I can't think of the title.
So yeah, that's Florida's on Fire from Here's to Shutting Up. I'm really interested in some stuff around this record. Here's where I'm going to start. That title, Here's to Shutting Up, I've always wondered how much you knew going into this record that it was going to be the last album for a good while, and that's why you gave it this title. Or if it's just maybe it was subconsciously in your mind and that's why you went for it, or it's got nothing to do with it. Because after this record, there's a 9-year gap between records.
I mean, I would say it's just because it's a funny lyric from one of the songs. And Jim might remember like other options that we had for album title. I don't remember, but I don't think that I had a sense that this was going to be the last record for 9 years.
I definitely didn't have a sense that it was going to be the last record for 9 years. And I think it was like the Here's to Shutting Up. There's the lyric in the Out on the Wing, is it?
Out on the Wing, is it? Yeah.
But it's also a direct, kind of like a reference back to Here's Where the Strings Come In. So it was sort of a funny title, it wasn't like gloomy or like it was when it came out, the day after 9/11 it was a bad time to be in a band. And like the lyrics about plane crashes on TV. I mean, it was just, it just bad timing,
That's a thing I wanted to ask about. It must have been just a very odd experience putting this record out when you did. There's Out on a Wing, which is about planes flying. There's the reference to the plane crashing in another song, Phone Sex.
Phone Sex. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's such a great record, but I can only think that you must have some very sort of mixed memories of that whole period.
Yeah, I mean, so supposed to come out, I'm pretty sure, on September 18th, which is a week after 9/11, because 9/11 was a Tuesday. Records came out on Tuesday back then. I'm pretty sure it was supposed to come out on the 18th, and I think they literally pushed it like a week or something. And then we flew to Japan almost immediately. Like we toured Japan first. Then we came home for a minute, and then we flew to Glasgow to start the European tour the day that we started bombing Afghanistan. So there's just all this shit happening in the background that it can't help but affect the mood of like everyone in the world. And so people just were like, I don't think going to see rock bands was necessarily at the forefront of their agenda at that point. We still had some great shows, and in particular, I mean, Japan was really fun. In America, we had Annie Hayden touring with us, playing auxiliary guitar and keyboards and doing other stuff. And that was really cool to have another person in the band, because as you know from listening to this record, there's a lot of keyboards and other things going on, and we were somewhat trying to replicate the songs live as much as we could. But again, I don't think it was everyone's favorite Superchunk record, and so I think a lot of people are like, why are you trying to recreate this record that's not my favorite record? And you sure are going to a lot of trouble doing it. Personally, like, I didn't want to change our idea about how we were going to do this just because all this shit had happened. So I think we stuck to our plan in a way. Like, we did all the touring. We brought this Ace Tone organ with us and a little Moog synthesizer. And it was cool. It was just very different for us. And we haven't really done a tour like that since then.
There's a lot of support touring on this record too, right? Rilo Kiley and Get Up Kids. It feels like a different audience.
Well, Rilo was opening for us because no one knew no one knew who they were yet. Jim discovered them. They said that
That's amazing.
Jenny said that last time they were here in North Carolina playing. She credited Jim with discovering
I did. I
Rilo
discovered
Kiley.
them.
That's incredible.
I think they would have been found without my help, but
they were filling in for Gorky's Zygotic Mincy, who was supposed to open that tour in the States, but who after 9/11 were like, yeah, we're not getting on an airplane. And so we had to find another opening act, and Jim suggested Rilo.
I had seen Rilo Kiley on a 5-band bill playing second, I think, at a club I worked at, the Cat's Cradle here in North Carolina, and I met them after the show because when I worked at the club, I never talked to the bands, but I was just, I saw them. I was like, hey, I really like your band. And they're like, oh, we know who you are. We love you. And like, I was like, oh my God. And then that was it. And I think, after that, every time they came through town, they stayed with me for a while. Then after that, we stayed friends. Yeah.
And then the support was for Get Up Kids that we did a little bit after that. I mean, that was really fun too. It's very different, playing for people that are definitely not there to see you. Hopefully some of them were into it. It's hard to say, but that was fun getting to know those guys.
They were huge fans, right? That's why you ended up playing with them. My understanding is their first record is named after a Superchunk lyric, 4 Minute Mile, right?
Yeah,
As is mine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's named after a line from It's Beautiful Here Too, I think. And then that Get Up Kids touring was kind of the last touring we did for a long time. We would play like the occasional shows, but like not a tour.
So was there an active decision? Was it something that you all sat down and discussed and said, that's it, we're going to take a long break now? Or was it just sort of naturally happened?
Yeah, I think it was John that was like, I'm kind of done. Yeah, we did have a sit down. And then I think that we had just recently played like a benefit show in the afternoon and at this club in Raleigh or something like that. And I was like, well, that's not going to be our last show ever. Like that'd be weird. So like, let's just put a hold on it or whatever,
Okay, we're going to hear another piece of music now. This is actually slightly out of chronology, but we'll hear it and then we'll chat about why we're doing it out of chronology.
Was your hometown care? No.
Yes.
That's funny. I was going to say that, but I was like, I think that song is faster than that.
So first of all, I'm going to say I chose this because it's actually a real big favorite song for me, Does Your Hometown Care? I don't know how much you really think about it or if it's ever dropped into sets again, but I think that opening riff is an absolute ripper. I love it. But the reason that I wanted to throw this one in here is because, yes, it was for a film soundtrack, but ultimately the way most people know this as far as Superchunk goes is because it's on one of your now, I think you've done 4 singles compilations, that's a lot of extra music beyond the albums you've made. We haven't touched upon it as we've been talking about the other ones, but you were regularly putting out 7 inches and singles and doing songs for compilations and whatnot as you went along. And you've continued to do a lot of 7 inches, even into this second era of Superchunk over the last 15 years. I'm sort of interested to know, like, why that is such an important thing for you and how do you possibly, like, keep up the momentum to write this much music? But is it because you grew up and you come from a culture of, like, 7 inches and those singles being really important that you feel like it's important to sort of carry that flag?
I think that that's a lot of it, like connecting with singles, collecting like singles by, Stiff Little Fingers or Echo and the Bunnymen or whoever, like, being on the lookout for punk singles and things. I think that has a lot to do with it. But to your point about like, how can you write so many songs? Well, if you're just putting out a 7-inch, you only have to write one song. And then you can put a cover on the B-side. So like you're just you can kind of do it like a little bit at a time, as opposed to like, oh, okay, like your last record has been out for a minute, now you have to write a whole new album. Well, no, you don't. Like you could just write one great song and put it out as a single, and that's really fun for people, And also like you might have a song that on an album could get lost, but if you put it out as a 7-inch, like there's people can focus on it and really like hear it, And going back to like a band like Unrest that we toured with a lot, like I love the fact that they're always putting out singles and split singles and stuff that had cool packaging, and like a lot of care went into each release, even though it was just a 7-inch. And so there was always something to kind of, look forward to coming out. Like you were always, you didn't have to wait 2 years or 3 years before the next full length. There was always like new music happening. That's kind of what inspired us to do it.
This is one of my favorite things about the band. I was talking about this last night. I went to one of the Yola Tango Hanukkah shows, and like I was giving a fairly impassioned speech to a friend about why I love that band so much, and so much of it is like Rock Band as teacher, just showing you so much music and so much great stuff. And I feel like the same is true for a band like Superchunk, with so many 7-inches and so many covers and just like so much great music discovery and so many punk bands and like all sorts of bands over the years that I've discovered from digging in on these 7-inches for bands that wouldn't have hit my radar. I think it's like a really compelling part of being a fan of the band.
Oh, thanks. Well, one thing I would say that makes this Does Your Hometown Care a good song is that it sounds like Versus. I mean, like when I hear that opening, and I think that opening riff sounds really cool too, but it sounds like a Versus song, I remember that the song title and the lyrics comes from like when they asked us to do a song for this soundtrack, they're like, well, here's what it's about, the movie. The movie's about this. So like you could write something that kind of has to do with the story of the movie. And so that's where that came from.
I'm glad we got to play it. I would love to see you play it live sometime. I don't think you've got that one out in a long time.
No, we have played it live before, I'm pretty sure, but it's been a minute.
Okay, let's go on to the next one.
Learn to Surf.
The LP version, not the single version.
Yes.
Or the EP version.
Yeah.
No.
So here we are. This is from Majesty Shredding, which is, I mean, I'm going to have to say the word comeback record because essentially it is the first album back after 9 years. But you'd already put Learn to Surf out on an EP with a different recording a year or so before. We have gone for like a very obvious choice of song here, but this is partly because I feel like Learn to Surf has become such a big song for Superchunk, really, which is kind of I mean, it's kind of mad that you're this many records into a career, you take a 9-year break, and then you put Mad She Shredding out, and that becomes an absolutely defining record for you. How long was it in sort of gestation for?
Well, I mean, first I would say think about how good all our records could have been if we just would have taken 9 years between each album. I don't know, Jim, we were probably like working on songs for like a couple years before.
Yeah, and dribs and drabs, I think. But like, I'll say this, like, I think the record is really good. And I think it's really good because Mac wrote like 99% of it without, you know what I mean? Like it's a singular vision. The band came in and like put their fingerprint on it, but like it really, I think it benefited from not having 4 cooks.
Right.
I mean, I loved, you know, the first part of the band's history where we were like a little more collaborative was fun, but it didn't really make for cohesive art all the time. It made for like,
Well, I think that
yeah, go ahead.
I think jamming works when everyone's into jamming. But if you're at a point where like, especially if you haven't made a record in 9 years, people aren't about to jump back into being in that mode, you know? So I felt a little bit like we should make a new record, and I'm going to show, I think Jim, you were game, but as far as like John and Laura goes, I think I felt had a little bit of a feeling where I had to like prove that it could be good.
Yeah.
Like, here's what it could sound like here's the songs, and just like as a proof of concept, basically, like this is what this record can be like. And so I couldn't just suggest let's just get together and jam, you know, because who knows if anything would have ever gotten made. It was a little bit more like writing songs for the first 3 records or something. But yeah, I think it turned out great, and we worked with Scott Solter, who made it sound amazing. It doesn't sound like any of our other records. And I think that we just figured out a way to still make a record and still be a band when no one wanted to do it like we used to. You know, like I had 2 kids by that point. Like Laura had a kid. Like we weren't just going to go camp out in Chicago for 10 days. Being able to go to a local studio, work with an awesome producer, and take our time with it was, you know, key to like getting it done.
This record also looks amazing. I feel like the art for this one, kind of iconic.
Credit to Maggie Fost, who was the Merge designer at the time. And I worked with her on it, and she had a lot of amazing ideas. She sourced the photo that's on the front and then dropped that little drawing onto it and did the layout and everything. Yeah, I think it turned out very well.
It looks awesome. I really do think that this record sets the bar for like a comeback record. I feel like there's so much energy that comes back in the second iteration of the band. I mean, specifically Learn to Surf, just so much energy. It's so much of the best. I feel like Superchunk hadn't sounded quite like this before, and hadn't some of the parts that are similar hadn't sounded like that in a long time. It's a iconic record.
Thanks. Shout out to Erectus Monotone. That riff is a rip-off of, I don't know, The Day the Sharks Flew or something, one of their songs.
Yeah, in some ways I would say it's the most mainstream-sounding Superchunk album. I mean, it's anthemic, right? It's a very anthemic record. But I'm quite intrigued to know, with 9-year gap, and I would say the moment you were putting it out in 2010, this is a world that you're entering of when it was, Bon Iver had put their first record out, and there were bands like Grizzly Bear and Yeasayer, whatever it might be. But like the general world is not like particularly rock focused at this point. But you came back with quite a rock record. Were you nervous about coming back, and were you surprised at how fantastically well it was received? I mean, obviously it's a great record, but did you have any expectations about it?
I didn't.
I didn't really have any expectations, but I think that my main expectation was that our fans would like it. I love a lot of those bands that you're talking about at the time, but we certainly weren't trying to make something that was going to fit in with whatever's happening now. In fact, I think it was a little bit like, let's get back to what people loved about us in the first place and make a record that we're going to want to play live, because as we were talking about, the last 3 records we made, those were kind of like hard to play live. And so like, let's make a record where we're going to want to play these songs live and be able to do that, and make a record that after 9 years, people aren't going to be like, why did you bother coming back to make this record? going to be like, oh yeah, like this is what I love about this band.
Yeah, it did go down brilliantly. I mean, I was very fortunate to hear it very early because I put it out on my own label in Europe.
Yes.
This is really the first time that, I'd opened for your show in 96. Actually, I opened in 2001 as well in London with another band. But
Not Umbrella.
not Umbrella, it was a different band at that point. It was, not Umbrella that time. But let's not talk about me.
When you called your band Umbrella, was that like because you could over and over again say like Umbrella is opening?
Oh my word, it wasn't, but I wish I had thought of that at the time. I do. It was a 3-syllable thing, though. You were right to pick up on that. I like 3-syllable names. I like 3-word names or 3-syllable names. Like yourself, Superchunk.
Yes.
Anyway, yes. I mean, as a fan, when I first heard it, you sent it to me. I could not believe how good it was, and even though we have chosen Learn to Surf because it's really as I said, it's quite a defining sound of like that time for you. There were so many songs we could have chosen from this record. It is an absolute top to bottom record. When people have said to me, hey, where should I start? I've often ended up pointing them to this record and saying, I kind of think Majesty Shredding is a great place to start because if you like that record, there's a lot of different avenues you can go off in, but that feels like a very great opening.
I appreciate that.
Is that something that you feel like makes sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And, to be honest, like, I think we felt lucky that someone in England wanted to put our record out because like that was, we were not really like au courant, you know what I'm saying? So we were lucky that you wanted to do that.
A friend came around the day that you had told me that you wanted to work with me, and it was a friend I've had for years who was telling me that he was having his first child, and I just sort of ignored him, and I said, David, I'm not...
You're like, yeah.
Right, let's hear the next song. A total banger.
Like that song.
So this is from I Hate Music, your follow-up to Majesty Shredding, which came a couple of years after that record. Again, this was another record that we struggled to decide which song to choose because there were so many. But let's talk about the title, I Hate Music. I mean, that's a pretty bold album title. I have to assume is a joke, but what brought it about?
Well, that record is largely about death, and specifically death of a friend of ours, and just kind of like how everything, including music, seems pointless in the face of that. It's also a little bit about just being in a band and having a record label and just being inundated with so much music all the time, so much of which just I have no connection to at all, and yet it's just coming at you constantly. And how like that makes it harder to write your own music in some ways, because it just has kind of like a deadening effect, you know? So it's kind of about those things, I would say.
Christ, the amount of music you're being faced with then is absolutely nothing with the amount that's coming out now.
This is the first Superchunk record that had come out after I was already a fan. I remember getting this record. This is the first new one I came on after Majesty Shredding or around Majesty Shredding. I think this record is so fantastic, super diverse. Again, love how it looks, but I hate music. And me and you and Jackie Matu, I remember seeing Superchunk for the first time in Philly on this tour at Union Transfer, and just like the band sounded fucking great. And like Tom said, really hard to pick a track from this record. I feel like I was in college. I was a year into starting my record label. I'd read the Merge book. I got my Superchunk tattoo. I was full on like this is it for me. But FOH, Low F, the video for Void, so fucking cool, so punk.
Yeah, that's a fun video.
Oh my God, who made that?
What, Jacobson?
That was Scott Jacobson.
Yeah.
He's made some really good he made the video for
Digging
for something. Yeah.
I feel like me and all my buddies in college, my friends I was running my label with, our friends whose bands we were putting out records for, this was a record that we all like super rallied around. And like there's so many anthemic moments and again vocal performances. The Trees of Barcelona, Breaking Down, Your Theme. I feel like this whole record is like it holds a really special place for me and my friend group, and the coffee shop we were working at the time while we were playing it on repeat. Just like all that special stuff.
That's awesome. That's great to hear, because you hear it a lot about Majesty Shredding, but not so much about this record. So that's cool.
It's darker.
Underrated record.
Darker. Lyrically heavy.
Yeah, it is darker.
I went like, did you clock around this record and I guess around Majesty Shredding as well that you weren't just playing to like your old Superchunk fans who were by this point like well into their 30s or whatever, but you were picking up people like Eric, you would have been in your like early 20s when this record came out.
Yeah, I would have been 20, 21 or 2. Yeah.
That's interesting. I don't think I really thought about it like that. We knew that like touring was going well and people were listening to the records, but I didn't really break it up into age groups so much, you know.
We were a niche contingent, I would say. Going to that show, there wasn't like, hey, here's all the college kids. You know, it was like, here's us, but certainly it was happening. And to that, like, I most recently saw Superchunk at Best Friends Forever Fest in Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
And there were so many young kids, and that's an emo festival, but like some of the slower Foolish tracks, you would just see all these kids go to crowd surf. It was, I was like, this is so cool to see so many young people, because I didn't know that. I didn't think about it, but of course, like,
that was wild.
You know.
That was a wild crowd. And like, to your point, I remember thinking maybe we played like a fool. I don't remember, but it was just like, wow, people are crowd surfing to this.
It was like
our slowest song. You know?
That's when like everyone went up. And I saw people leave like after the song was done. I don't know if there was another band playing and there wasn't much left in the set, but it was like this is what we were waiting for. This like crowd surfing to the 7-minute slow Superchunk song. I didn't know about that contingent. It's really cool.
That's wild.
Really cool.
I do want to touch just briefly on, it would have been around this record that Laura moved from being just a recording member of Superchunk and stopping playing live due to hearing issues. That must have been, that's a big change. Like Laura has been playing with you since the very, like she's along with you, Mac, the original member, right? So what was that adjustment like for you? It was Jason you brought in to play with you live around this point, wasn't it?
Yeah, Jason Narducci was someone that, well, I knew him through playing in Bob Mould's band.
Right.
Bob Mould, well, yes, but Bob Pollard's band is what I meant to say,
Right.
because we merged to put out some Bob Pollard solo records when GBV was on a hiatus, and John Worster and Jason were the rhythm section in that band. And Jim, is that how we knew Jason?
that's how.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then playing with Bob Mould, John Worster was also playing with Jason in that band. So they were a rhythm section that had been working together, and Jason just fit in perfectly into the live lineup. One thing that's amazing about Jason that very few people I know like this, it's like he can hear a song and just kind of know how to play it. And so, we change our set list all the time, and there's songs that Jim and I have been playing for 30 years that I'm like, I got to figure out how to play that. Jason kind of knows already. But it allows us a lot of flexibility with what we're doing, because we can just kind of count on Jason being able to learn stuff quickly and just kind of understand how the songs work. And so, yeah, it's been awesome playing with him.
Fantastic. Let's move on to the next piece of music.
And now it's night, but I've seen our silhouette fade, weaken to gray. We used to be sharp against the light. Our empathy weaponized, our history bleaching out during the day. Yeah. What you're after, erasure, erasure. What you're after, erasure, erasure. But we're the weeds and you need a path more clear for you. A single golden tear for you won't fall, as if that's all we have to leave to bleed for the flag you want to fill, the heart you want to kill won't die. Can't you see what you're after, erasure, erasure. What you're after, erasure, erasure.
Erasure. Yeah, so Erasure is on What a Time to Be Alive. And it's crazy hearing that drum sound. The drums are very like thick sounding, like almost like Here's Where the Strings Come In is like the closest drum sound that I can think of when I hear that, just off the top of my head. But yeah, so we made this record in North Carolina with Bo Sorensen, who again came recommended from the Bob Mould world. So I think John had worked with him on some Bob recordings. Is that right, John?
Yeah.
The songs were written like late 2016, early 2017. I mean, that's one of the slower songs on the record, I think. The whole record has a pretty it's got a punk feel, and I don't think there's any keyboards on the record. It's just more stripped down, and we've always had synths, I would say. Well, obviously there's players on Come Pick Me Up in terms of strings and horns, but in terms of guest vocalists, since Here's to Shutting Up, we've had some different people sing on our records. And as we moved into this era of recording technology where, I have Pro Tools at my house, like other musicians have Pro Tools at their house or some kind of recording software. And the internet is you can send large files easily. It's become much easier to have people sing on your songs or add instruments to your songs that you couldn't really do in the past unless you had them come to your house, or come to your studio. And so this record, we got to have some fun people sing on this record including on the song that you're listening to, Katie Crutchfield from Waxahachie and Stephen Merritt, which I don't think that combination exists anywhere else in recorded music, as far as I know. But Katie actually was sang here where I'm sitting now, and Stephen recorded his at home. And so while the record is really stripped down in some ways, in other ways, like we got to have these guests, Skylar Gudaz, Dave Bazan, I know I'm forgetting people, but anyway, like we did get to have these interesting guest singers on the record, in addition to it just being kind of a straightforward like punk record.
I mean, let's talk about this because it is the most straight ahead punk record, certainly since the very early days of Superchunk, and lyrically, by miles, your most direct lyrical record. I've heard you say before that lyrics and some of your songs sort of come to you in dreams, but this definitely doesn't feel like a record where you've come up in dreams. This is a direct response to what is going on at the time. And I'd always sort of wondered, and it sort of felt like it sounded like it, maybe it's that sort of punk spirit of it, that this is a record that felt like, because it was such a response to what was going on, that it was written quickly. I don't mean that in a negative way at all. It sounds like it's immediate. It needed to be written. Is that the case? Is that what happened, that it was something that came together very quickly?
I would say that is the case. I mean, I think we did more than one recording session, but I think the songs were written pretty fast, and with the idea of like, no need to overwork these songs or try to experiment with anything. Like, it's pretty much, it is what it is, And that really resonated with a lot of people, I think. I think the record resonated with people. The shows were really great. I mean, when we put out a new record, we tend to play the songs from the record live. But I remember we would start sets with like 3 or 4 songs from this record. And I remember feeling very gratified that there wasn't really like a fall off in energy from the crowd when we did that. They weren't like, oh, we're waiting to hear the songs we know already. Like people were super engaged in this.
I feel like, especially in this time period, it's nice to sing along to these songs that I have to imagine most of your fan base is feeling, and just to get out there and have a release in this time can feel unifying and really nice when not a lot else does.
I agree, and I think that we were feeling that this year, frankly, on the touring that we just did.
This was, as we've been talking about, such a direct response to what was happening in 2017. This is like the first year of the first Trump term. Are you surprised that there hasn't been more music about this? I don't feel that there were a lot of other records in 2017 that were such a direct response to the Trump presidency. Whereas if you look back at like the 1980s, like the original era of hardcore and a lot of punk music, it was nearly all a response to that. I don't know, but maybe it's just I've not been surrounded by it.
Tom, yeah, I know what you mean, and one thing I would say might deter people from writing music that's in direct response to a political situation is because it can date that music. I mean, I love listening to hardcore from the 80s, but the messages about Ronald Reagan may not carry the same weight that they did then. So yeah, I don't know. I can't really explain that, and I think that it's also not something that you can do over and over again in a way that feels still impactful or gratifying or something like that. It felt right for the time, for sure.
I feel like this record, while it will bring a lot of people who are around and paying attention to it then right back to this era that we're still in the middle of.
Yes, sadly, white supremacy, perennial problem.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to the next song.
Up
This night,
That is This Night from Wild Loneliness, the COVID record.
COVID record, made in this room. Jim would come over and I'd be sitting over there with a mask on, and Jim would be playing guitar over here with a mask on. It's like we just tracked everything like that.
It was miserable.
I'm really like the way this record turned out in terms of how it sounds and the songs, and again, like having some amazing guests like Tracy Ann Campbell and Teenage Fan Club. Owen Pallett did the strings.
I love the strings on this record. I feel like it feels like the band's been back long enough that you're experimenting again, kind of like the indoor living to Here's to Shutting Up era, which is really nice to hear and to get back to. I mean, we're in the weeds here, so we could say something like that. But I feel like I've noticed that before, and in this song selection and hearing the strings come out right away, it's like, oh yeah, this is not like exactly the Superchunk that came back in like 2010, and it's really nice to have a record like this.
I think after the last, another record like Here's to Shut, What a Time to Be Alive, I think would just feel suffocating at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And would also feel disingenuous in terms of like a rock band playing all together in a room, which is what that one was. It's like we couldn't all be a rock band playing together in a room when we made this record. And so the reality was like a lot of people were still making music in their home studios and doing things from home and doing like, what do you call it? Like live home shows or whatever on camera so people could watch on the internet. And there was like a lot of acoustic performances that way. So it felt just more real to be like an acoustic record. I don't think I'd maybe play electric guitar on like one song on this record or something.
Wow.
But I think if Mike Mills wasn't sitting home with not being able to do anything because of a pandemic, it might have been harder to get him to sing on a Superchunk record. I don't know. But he was like super gracious and did that. Sharon Van Etten, Franklin Bruno,
Kelly Pratt.
I mean, it's just like Andy Stack plays saxophone. He's like a drummer and a keyboard player. He's like, you really want me to play sax? I was like, yes. So like he plays that killer sax solo on Wild Loneliness. It's just like an opportunity to like do something different, and I'm really glad we made it. And we reunited with Wally Gagel, who recorded Here's Where the Strings Come In, and he lives in Los Angeles and he mixed this record. So it was fun to get to work with him again as well.
Okay, one last song.
All the silver leaves are turning black as the sun's slipping down. I missed the last thing you said. You were already turning around. And I was doubling back as fast as this wreck would go. But I could see the bus pulling away. You were waving from the window. And I've been stuck in this dream all night. Swerving off to the left, when you cut to the right. Unfamiliar trees, mountains to the sea. Beauty, but we're losing light. And I'm stuck in a dream. Oh. There's so many rooms in this house. We'll be walking forever. Bats and vultures flying in and out. And we can't stand the pressure. Grab me by my good foot. Shake me till I see you. Mark each door with ashes, so we know what we've been through.
Stuck in a dream.
Every note is utilized, and that's all. Every chord, every
Possibly more chords than any other Superchunk song.
unreal.
So I am going to tell you that I chose this song. I think it is probably my favorite song on the record, although it's a record packed with songs that I love. And I particularly chose it because this is the first record you've made without John in the band anymore. So Laura King is playing with Superchunk now. And there is this section in this song when you drop down to the, it goes into 6/8, and then the fills that come out of the back end of that 6/8 section are the most... I have punched the air whilst running to that song every single time because I just love that moment so much. But it's been... And I've seen you play with Laura on drums now a couple of times. And I spoke to you afterwards and said it just feels like there's so much energy to this band right now. I mean, she's brought this whole new kind of feel to everything. How's it been for you? I mean, it was a long time you were playing with John, so bringing a new drummer into the fold, it's always going to affect things. I'd love to know a little bit more about how's it been? How you sort of came across Laura? Obviously,
Yeah, I think it's been amazing playing with Laura, and we knew that we loved her, like we were friends already, and like hanging out with her was great. And I had played with her in Non-Believers, but it's true, like playing with the same drummer, John, for so many years, knowing what to expect, knowing how solid and good he is, and him having the knowledge of the catalog, etc. It was a little daunting, like wondering what that was going to be like, but Laura's a powerhouse, as you've witnessed, and she kills it on this record, and she kills it live. She's also excited to be on tour, which is an awesome thing to be around when you're in a strange place far from home and, riding in a van for 8 hours a day or whatever. She's always got a good attitude and is looking forward to the show. So it's been great having Laura in the band.
Yeah. Can't say enough good things about her. Great.
yeah, she's fantastic. As I said, it's just fantastic seeing you. And I even love the fact that a couple of shows I saw you play at, she was clearly still kind of figuring some stuff out, and it just sort of made the shows even more fun. The sort of like enjoyment that you could see that you're all having on stage, as it was like, it doesn't matter if there's mistakes because there's so much like fun and excitement and energy to it. Yeah, it just felt really fresh when I was watching you play.
Thank you. We threw a lot of things at our rhythm section because like we do have so many songs and we do change up the set list. So, whether it's Betsy Wright on bass or Jason and for Laura playing drums, we're often like learning a song in soundcheck that they've never seen, but that they've never played before. So, props to them for keeping up with that and not just walking off.
Okay. Make sure you start learning Does Your Hometown Care for the next one.
Yep. I got to figure out what tuning it's in first. And then...
We've come to the end of the discography and the end of the chat. Thank you so much. This has been such an enjoyable conversation. And honestly, I felt like we were having to cut little bits short here because there's so much more we could have spoken about. But the last question I always like to ask is, Eric and I have chosen a lot of songs from across the catalogue here. But if each of you were to choose one song that you would say, start here, or this is my favourite, whatever it might be, but what would be the one song that you would like to play in this podcast?
Are you ready for it? Here it is. What Can We Do? Which I just listened to recently, and I was wow. I'd totally forgotten about it. And I was like, oh, wow, I really like this. I can't remember how to play it at all, but it's a good one.
Yeah, it's a great choice.
Yeah, I like that song. I like that song a lot too. I would say, not to out weird you, Jim, but I would say Highly Suspect because we've never played it live. So I don't think about it all that often, but when I hear it, I'm like, oh, that's a cool song, and it's on Wild Loneliness, and I think it's really catchy. It's just a little weird to learn. I don't know. We've just never tried to learn it. But
the horns are so prominent.
Yeah, Kelly Pratt played the horns on that one, and I think that he did an awesome job. So yeah, I'll say Highly Suspect.
Highly Suspect. This is something we don't normally do, but I'm gonna allow it today, Eric. What would yours be that we've not chosen?
Oh my God. We've chosen so many great songs. It's really hard. I might also pick something from I Hate Music. I feel like in sharing a bit of that time, I'm going to be revisiting that record, and it holds such a nice place for me. I might go a little more obvious, and Me, You, and Jackie Matu, I think. What a song.
It's nice and concise too.
It's concise. It is concise. It's under 2 minutes.
Short and punchy.
Tom?
Well, since you asked. For many years, I would have said The Majestic. But do you know the song that I love so much, and it is I would say it's quite a deep cut, is White Noise. I absolutely love White Noise.
I like that song too, and I remember because that's a B-side that we recorded when we were doing Come Pick Me Up, and I was trying to play this piano part on there that's kind of like a John Cale like piano part, but I'm not John Cale obviously, and I'm not a piano player either, so like it just took forever. And then I remember after doing that, Jim O'Rourke was like, wait, this song isn't even going on the album? Like, because we spent so much time on trying to get this piano part. He couldn't believe it. Anyway, that's how.
Well, I love that one. So thanks for finishing it off, because it's a beautiful song, White Noise.
Thanks.
Really beautiful one.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Mac. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
And there we have it. That was the second episode of our two-part series with the greatest band in the world, Superchunk. This is Secretly Frequencies. I'm Tom Davies, and my co-host was Eric Osmon. You can hear all the songs from today's episode on our playlists via the link in the show notes, and do check back in the Secretly Frequencies archive for shows with Numero Group, Sharon Van Etten, Unknown Mortal Orchestra, Oneida, Lonnie Holly, so many more. The Secretly Society podcast is an original production of the Secretly Group. This episode was mixed by Carson Atwater, with additional editing by Isaac Sanchez. The project manager for the Secretly Society podcast is Coco Segala. Robbie Morris is the creative director. Look out for more from the Secretly Society wherever you get your podcasts.